let's talk about a little movie called Porky's. This is a movie that I consider a greaser movie because it's set in the 50s and it's about high school students and it's about, coming of age, which doesn't mean anything to me. I'm 21 years old, so I couldn't give a shit about this teenage stuff. But before I get into Porky's, I'd just like to make a disclaimer. I've already used the word shit. So I'm going to get into some very colorful language talking about this film. So if you're offended at all by me using very graphic language, you might want to turn away now while there's still time. I'll give you 3 seconds. One, two, three. Okay, if you're still with me, let's proceed. Porky's is a lot like if you took American Pie and had someone take a shit on it, rub the shit all over it, take out his dick and bust a nut on it, and then piss on it for good measure. It just is completely stinky, rotten, rancid, disgusting. It's trashy. This film is like makes me dirty. It makes me want to shower. Just watching it, just I want to get a shower. It's filthy. I haven't seen this movie in years, but I'm remembering everything about it. Just the jokes are dumpy. Like you'd have to be like stoned off your ass or fucking brain dead to find this movie funny, or just a sexist asshole. The way it objectifies women. Ebert and Siskel were right. Porky's is about a group of high school kids in the year 1954, and they go to school in Florida, which that's a pretty interesting concept. 1954, Florida. Whoever thought this up was really thinking outside the box. Like, let's set it in this weird ass place. And they want to go into this nightclub out in the boonies in the Everglades called Porky's, the aforementioned title. Now, Steve 1989 is a subscriber of mine, and he's a friend of mine. And I want to ask him. He's from Florida. Do they really have nightclubs out in the fucking Everglades like that? Come on, man. Really? Is that a thing or not? Because it seems like the only club you'd find out there would be fucking Dope Shack or some guy selling meth out there in the Everglades. Like I can't imagine there being a strip club out there, and it's almost like a bayou place. But here there is, and the owner's an asshole. It's almost like a cliche. He's a dumpy. They have to sneak pie him to get in. Because they're underage. And he's a major asshole, a thief, a robber, a con man. He's a dirty old man. All these kids are interchangeable. I didn't give a shit about him except for the Jewish guy. He was pretty cool because he had one line that was like, being Jewish, you take a lot of shit, so we learn martial arts. Now hold on a second. Where do you learn martial arts in '54 Florida? Back then, people fought with their fists and their hands, and they didn't have any training. They didn't use grapples or anything. It was a different era. We were still pissed off at Japan back then for, World War II. And there weren't dojos everywhere. It wasn't until the 60s and Bruce Lee caught on that martial arts got big. So we're just going to magically assume he learned. Now, if he learned boxing or wrestling or something, yeah, that makes sense. But no, he knows like some kind of martial arts or something like that. He's like the Karate Kid. And it's like, it doesn't really work. Now let's talk about the age of some of these guys. I'm 21, and I already look like I'm a little bit too old to play a high school student, don't I? I've got these like lines in my face and shit in my eyes bear all the age for me. They're like the Dorian Gray part of my face, and some of these guys are like 26 to 28. That's a little bit old to play a high school student, don't you think? And it shows. A lot of these guys look like they're beyond college age. They look like they're like lawyer age. Like this should be like an office type movie, about adults doing stupid shit, like an Adam Sandler film. But nope, it's supposed to be high school students. Like these guys haven't been high school students since the '60s. Okay, some of them, some of them really. I'm serious. And movie was made in 1981. Why didn't they just set it in '81? Was there really a need to make it set in the '50s? Some kind of superficial charm about it being set in the '50s because Grease came out a couple years earlier? I don't know. They should have just set it in '81 and saved everyone the trouble of trying to figure out how to comb their hair. I'm sure none of these guys were like, we weren't even alive when this was made, so how are we supposed to know? We were still shitting our pants, shitting our diapers when this movie was set. We don't know how to comb our hair. So it basically just looks like an '80s movie. A bunch of guys dressed like the '50s. It's really weird. It's like leather jacket and fucking feathered hair. Or like the gal's got like the '80s curls, and yet she's supposed to be like a '50s. Like, hit or miss. There was no need to set it in the '50s, apart from the nostalgia, I guess they're going for. But anyone who was alive in the 50s and was a teenager in 54 probably isn't going to see this movie because they're born in the fucking, what, 1930s? And they'd probably be like 40 something by the time this movie came out, so they're not going to watch this shit. It's just the sucker teenagers, I guess. My mother, of all people, showed this to me when I was like 14. And I was like, fuck, this movie was like, it was ugly. It was haunting. It was like, first time I saw a naked girl on screen in a movie, I think, or something like that. It was like, I'd already seen, and I wasn't a stranger to that, but there's a huge scene in this where they got like all the girls in the shower room, and it's really creepy, really voyeuristic. It feels like the director is some kind of sick pervert. I don't really like that. Porky's is a guilty pleasure. It's kind of fun to watch in some parts, but it's kind of not fun to watch in others. The jokes are dumb. The premise is interesting. The characters suck, except for the Jewish guy. And the acting is, it's miscast. All these guys look way too old, like 28-year-old high school students. They must have been held back like 10 fucking years. They're 7 years older than me. Jesus. You want to talk about getting bad grades? You're going to be in high school till you're 28. I'm probably 30. Porky's is a 5 out of 10 guilty pleasure. It has that kind of feel to it. Would I watch it again? As Jeremy John says, I'd probably watch it if I was fucking drunk. But otherwise, I'm not going out of my way to watch it. I haven't seen it in years for a reason. But I still remember just how ugly this movie was. Is it a greaser movie? No, not at all. It's not very nostalgic in that sense. It just, I guess the 50s is supposed to be some kind of excuse to make it as trashy as possible. People weren't that trashy back then, okay? Go ahead and find these guys coming up with lines like, "Can we find Mike Hunt? I'm looking for a guy named Mike Hunt." Yeah, you can't even hear the crickets. There are no crickets. It's just not even funny. It's like, fart. That was a fail. They might as well have used a fart joke. It would have been just as dumb. Okay. I think I've said everything I need to say about this. So it's a 5 out of 10. Not a greaser movie. Just a trashy teen comedy that it has a cult following and everyone knows nowadays. But it's still not as good as other greaser movies. I don't even like using this, but greaser movies. Take it in loose context, okay? So 5 out of 10. Porky's is mildly forgettable. Stay cool.